What's going on, guys? Mackenzie Long here. So today we're talking about financial freedom, literally the step-by-step guide to show you how to do this. And we're making this into a playlist so that you can have all of these pieces of the puzzle together. And we're going through the 7 money milestones. Now, this one is not officially a money milestone, and I'll tell you why later. So we're going to call it 1.5 budgeting and setting goals. And before we get into this video, I want you to know it's probably going to be a little bit on the longer side because we have a lot to cover today. And the reason why we're going through this book and the reason why I love this book is not because it's been on TV hundreds of times, not because it's been fact-checked by CNBC, or because it's the #1 best-selling personal finance book, but simply because it works. It's simple, it's easy to read, it's easy to understand, it's enjoyable to read. Most finance books are very, very boring. So if you haven't gotten this book, I highly recommend it. It will really help you on your journey wherever you are. It's called How Money Works, Stop Being a Sucker. You can find it on Amazon. I'll have a link down below if you'd like to use that. Or if you want to become part of our Booked Up Club, in August 2022, we are giving away over $50,000 in financial literacy resources. And this is not a YouTube thing or social media thing. This is just something that our team is putting together, that we fronted this money, and we want to help get some of these resources out into our community. So if you'd like to be a part of that and receive some of these resources, there's a MailChimp link down below that you can get in on that. We do need to get some information from you. We will send you out some emails or give you a phone call so we can get your actual details on where to send these resources. The only thing that the book doesn't really give us is going to be a winning mindset. And that's really what my channel is all about, on how to shift some of those thoughts maybe that you have, or maybe that you have had, or that you'll come across in your journey to success, whether it's financial, whether it's business. But I think this book is a fantastic place to start, no matter where you are at in the journey of your life. Doesn't matter the age or how much you have achieved or haven't achieved. I think this book is a perfect example of what the milestone should be. It gives the education behind it, that way that you can be educated and you're not being taken advantage of. So today we're going to be talking about something that is not in the book, and I'll tell you why it's not in the book, but we're calling it Milestone 1.5. Now, this is what we would be doing directly after you getting your financial education. And the reason why it's not in the book partially is because you would generally be doing this with your financial professional. And the reason why that's important, on multiple reasons, which we'll talk about the mindset behind it today, but the biggest reason is that this is not a milestone. Budgeting and setting a goal is not a milestone. It's something we need to do along the way, and it's something that we need to revisit along the way, but it is not an actual milestone. And the reason why you would do it with a financial professional, and you'd be surprised, actually vast majority of them do not even charge for this advice and do go through these things with you. So it's a very imperative that you do that. However, if you don't do it, there are some things that you can start working on, and it's a good idea to understand this behind the scenes so you can understand what's going on. And if your financial professional is not doing these things, that should be a red flag for you. The importance of having somebody that comes alongside of you and helps you with this, your financial professional, is because we're emotional creatures. And for some reason, we get blinded by things that we should see, but we don't see because we are emotional about it. And you've probably noticed this when you're talking to your friend about a relationship or something like that. You can automatically see the red flags in your brain, and then your friend is wondering why things aren't working out, and you can see it clear as day. Why? Because you are not blinded by the fog of the emotions of the things that are going on. That's the same thing that happens when you work with your financial professional, is they don't have the fog of all of the emotions and feelings behind your finances, that they can see clearly of what it is that's going on and where you need to course correct. So what that does is that saves you years of time in you not having to figure all of those things out for yourself. You can have somebody go, well, we should work on this, and this has worked, and it's having a guide up to the top of Mount Everest versus trying to figure it out yourself. And I think Albert Einstein said it best. He said that you cannot a problem cannot be solved by the same consciousness that created it. And that oftentimes the problems that we create in our own lives, we can't see the solution to it because it wouldn't be a problem in our life if we saw the solution to it. Meaning if you already knew how to budget and you knew how to stay out of debt and you knew how to make money, then this would not be a problem for you. And the reason why I know this to be true is because I've worked with people on these things for almost a decade now, almost 9 years that I've been working on this, and people have done all kinds of crazy budgets and they never really seem to get ahead. I've even started investing some time into watching the YouTubes about people who have channels specifically about budgeting, and they do this whole debt confession thing, which I think is fascinating. And what happens is I've watched their videos from 2, 3, 4 years ago, and then I watched their videos that they released much more recently, and the challenge is oftentimes they're in a worse situation than when they started. They have more debt, they don't understand how they're getting theirs, they're still asking for advice, and everybody encourages them, and I think that's a great thing that we should do, but nobody's actually giving them solutions on how to get out of it. And that's because they think that this is a milestone of learning how to budget, and it's not. So these poor people, they're trying to do this budgeting and goal setting thing for years, and they're not getting any further ahead. So I don't want you to be stuck on that. Remember, this is not a milestone. It is like learning how to drive a car. You need to put gas in it, but it doesn't make you a better driver on how you put gas in it. It's just part of the process. And budgeting and goal setting is the same exact thing. For those of you that have kids, you know exactly what I'm talking about. This is the challenge with us as we become adults. We no longer want to be accountable. We go through school, we go through college, and we're accountable because there's a grading system, right? We have to take tests. So every semester we get an idea of how we're doing and if we need to invest more time. If you have kids, you understand exactly what I'm talking about. They bring home a low grade in the middle of the semester, in the middle of the quarter, you're going to go, hey, we need to work harder. We need to get this grade up. No more playing outside. We need to focus on these things. So why is it that we stop doing that in our financial life and we expect to still get further ahead? And that's the biggest reason why people don't get a financial professional to help them. I highly doubt it's about the cost, because you know you're going to put hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars into your future by working with a professional. So I don't think it's really that. I think the biggest thing is that lack of accountability. And the challenge with that is it feels good now, but usually things that feel good now aren't actually good for us. It's usually the things that don't feel good now that are good for us. And one of those things is having accountability around our finances. And that's really what your financial professional is going to help you with, and say, hey, we're getting a little bit behind in this area. We might not be able to play over the summer. We might have to do some summer school. We got to get back on track in some of these areas. Whereas the lack of accountability says we're behind in these areas, but we're still going to play all summer and not get caught up. And that compounds into a lifelong problem or challenge with money. But enough reminiscing or talking about that. Let's get into what you're actually here for, and that's to learn how to budget and what to do and what to look for. And my wife and I, Marlene, we've been working on an Excel sheet that I want to be able to include with this as well, that I think will kind of help you. Basically what I did is I took some of our professional programs and I diluted it into the smallest, easiest way to be able to work into an Excel sheet, so you can start getting an idea of some of these numbers. Now, this is not 100% accurate. I want you to understand that. This is just something that some YouTube guy put together, an Excel sheet. So don't take it as fact, but I think it will get you very close to what it is that you're trying to accomplish and help you to see the vision of the bigger picture. But again, this is something we don't want to stay focused on. You are not going to get wealthy by simply budgeting. And I have my sheet here in front of me. I want to explain to you how I walk somebody through this process. Normally I'd be doing this, we call it kneecap to kneecap, right? But husband and wife and us working on these things together. An important note there as well, you want to do this with your spouse. I know how hard it can be to get them to sit down. They seem like they're busy all the time, but you two being on the same page is going to put you miles ahead, because it only takes one hole in a boat to sink it. And if you don't know that they're creating holes, or if you're the one creating the holes, then that can still sink the entire boat. So it's important to have you guys on the same page for these things. Now you can start doing a lot of the preliminary work to make it as easy on them as possible, but they are going to have their input on this. So the first thing we're going to start with is either your variable or your fixed monthly expenses. Now this is really important, and you're going to miss most of them the first couple times that you do that. So just to understand that. Usually when I see somebody's budget, it's missing lots of stuff. So either pull up mine or find some kind of budgeting thing that you like, or you can kind of just write them down on a piece of paper as well, and I'll help you kind of perfecting some of these things. So obviously on the variable side, things like groceries and dining out, those are going to fluctuate, so you want to make sure that you have over there. Entertainment, power, gas, water, cable, gym membership, if you buy clothing. Now, part of what we need to do in being good at budgeting is that you've got to start to understand, or you've got to start to see into the future before it actually happens. And if you've been trying to do a budget and it hasn't worked out, here's why. You're not looking far enough into the future. And what I mean by that is most people spend everything they have on that paycheck when they get it, meaning their monthly expenses matches their income. And the challenge with that is there's lots of things that we do that we don't pay for monthly. An example of that is an oil change. We do that every 3 months or so. So that $60, $80, $100 might be a surprise to you every time that you have to do it, because you're not planning for it, you're not seeing far enough in the future. So if we're spending everything that's coming in today, we don't have the ability to adjust for those things that come up. So things like weddings, or things like our friends' birthday parties that we end up buying them a small gift, or going out to eat, or whatever it might be, if we're constantly living at our means or below our means, those things always become a surprise to us, and they're only a surprise because you haven't gotten good at this yet. So things like maybe hair and nails, your car registration, you know that's due every year, it's hundreds of dollars. We can be putting money aside for that we're prepared for that when it actually happens. So figure that out the best as you can, and this is going to be a work in progress. Very rarely are you going to sit down one time and have this perfected, so just understand that. Then we're going to go through the fixed side as well. What are you paying for your mortgage or your rent? How much are you paying for gas on a monthly basis? And that might be a little bit flexible as well. Your car payments, your car insurance, your cell phone, how much are you putting onto your credit card payments per month? Now, this is how much you're putting on there per month to pay off the balance. Now, some people I've noticed basically live on their credit cards. They put everything on their credit cards, and then they pay their credit cards every month, or that portion of it every month. So if you're doing that, don't put that in this category, because it's going to look like you're spending way more money than you are. Meaning, if you buy groceries, go out and do your entertainment, it's $500 a month, and you're putting that you're making a payment of $500 a month on your credit card, it's going to look like $1,000 a month, and it's not. It's just you're paying it with your credit card and paying your credit card off, okay? So this is more so going to be for revolving debt. How much are you paying on it every month just to maintain that balance? Then student loan payments, how much are you, or how much are you supposed to be paying on your student loans as a monthly payment? Okay, then what we're going to do is we're going to come over to this section, and we need to figure out our discretionary income. So our discretionary income, the gap, is basically going to be our income minus our expenses, shows us our discretionary income. So income minus expenses creates the gap. The bigger the gap, the better we're off, the more distance we can create. And that's why it's important to be able to understand how to budget to keep your expenses low. However, that's not in the long run going to create wealth. Yes, we need to learn how to do that. Yes, we need to learn how to not have increase, so that when we make more money, that we constantly increase our lifestyle. But again, that's just something that we've got to learn. We've got to learn to create that gap, because in that gap is really where we can meet all of our financial goals. The next thing that you're going to want to figure out after you get your discretionary, whatever that number is. Now, if that number is negative, we got some work to do. We got lots of work to do. And that means we need to make more money, and we need to cut back on some things. If you have some decent space there, but you don't have any actual savings, it means you're missing things in your budget. There's way more expenses that you've forgotten about than you have on here, and you need to go back and you look at those. The other thing that might happen is if your expenses are way higher than your income, and you have some savings, there's probably some other incomes that you're not including. Maybe you get child support, or maybe you have an Airbnb or something that you rent out don't forget to include those incomes as well. Or maybe there's an annual bonus that your husband or your wife gets that you forgot to add. The next thing you need to figure out is going to be how much of that can you actually afford to save? How much of that can you start putting away towards the long term? Also, what is your retirement age? When do you actually want to stop working? Or when do you want to start working by choice instead of because you have to? And an important number to understand here as well is going to be your life expectancy, because that's going to help us determine how much money we actually need into the future. And then also, how much a month do you need to be able to retire in? So in today's dollars, how much money do you need to be bringing in? Is it about what you're making now? Is it a little bit less? Is it a little bit more? Because then what we can do is we can calculate what that amount is actually going to look like into the future, and we can get an idea of how much money we need to actually save. This is one of the biggest faults that I see with most people's budget, is they don't ever do the goal setting side of it with actual numbers. They go, well, I'd like to have $500,000 in the bank, or I'd like to have $250,000 saved. However, what they're not realizing is that might be miles off of what they actually need for retirement. So great, you hit your goal, but your goal was a mile from where you actually needed to be. So now you don't get to actually stop working like you wanted to. So I'm going to show you how to get some actual real factual numbers of what that's going to look like in the future, so you know what to aim for. Then we're going to come down and we need to figure out our assets. We need to figure out where we're currently at. And on here, you're going to want to put what you have in your checkings and savings. This is going to basically be your emergency fund. This could be under the mattress. This could be the hole in the wall. This could be wherever you put that money. Maybe your mom's storing a couple $1,000s for you, whatever it is. What do you have in your saving and checking account? What do you have that you have easy access to? The next thing we're going to be looking at is, what do you have as far as taxable assets? What do you have in your CDs or maybe money market accounts, things that don't really have a tax benefit for us, but maybe they're giving us a little bit of growth. The next thing we're going to be looking at is, what do we have in our retirement accounts, specifically our pre-tax dollars? And the reason why this is important is because, as we'll talk about later, those dollars are going to be taxed in our retirement, so we need to figure that into our savings account as well. And so this is going to be our 401k, our IRA, our 403b, our 457, whatever it might be that you get paid for through wherever it is that you work. Then we're going to be looking into the tax exempt category. This might be your 401k, but it's the Roth side of your 401k, or maybe it's a Roth IRA, or maybe it's even in your cash value life insurance. How much do you have in there that's going to be tax exempt? Again, the reason why this is important is because in your retirement years, when you go to stop working, you can pull dollars from your tax exempt category and not have to pay any taxes on it. It changes how much money we need to actually save. And then what assets do you have? What things have value? Maybe you have some homes, whatever it might be. Figure out what those assets are, so then you have an understanding of where you're actually at. Then we want to come over to our liabilities. What do we owe on our cars? What do we owe on our credit cards, our student loans? What do we still owe on our house? Do we have any other real estate assets or do we have any other real estate liabilities that we still have to pay on? And you're going to want to put those as well. And then you can figure out what your actual net worth is. Assets minus liabilities is going to be your net worth. For most people, they are probably going to be negative in this category, and that's a great eye-opener for people, is to understand that, which is crazy to me because I remember doing this in my early 20s. I was about 24, 25 years old, and I was like, man, I've been working for 10 years and I have negative assets. How is that possible? And that's where a lot of people are going to be at. Also, we need to figure out where we're at with our life insurance. Do we have any life insurance? Most people have no idea what they're paying for their life insurance, what it actually covers. I've seen so many people have an accidental death and dismemberment policy, which is not real life insurance. I don't know why people have that in most situations, unless you're at a job that you could lose limbs pretty easily. But other than that, I don't really understand. So figure out what you actually have for your life insurance, and what you have through your company and what you have outside of your company, because it's very, very different. And then also you'll want to understand, do you get a tax refund at the end of the year? Because the reason why that's important is there might be a situation where you could claim more dependence on your taxes, and then that way you can get more money back throughout the year instead of overpaying in your taxes and then waiting all year and then getting some money back. Now, I'm not a tax attorney. You're gonna have to talk to your CPA, your tax guy about that, but that might be something that you'd want to do. Really, ideally, we want our tax refund to be a plus or minus about $100 if we can get it that close. So this will help you with your basic budgeting and getting an understanding of where you're at. And remember, it's going to take you multiple tries to get this figured out, because generally what's going to happen is you're going to be spending more money than you expect to, or you're gonna have other incomes coming in that you don't realize. So it's going to take you a few months to get through this, or to really understand and grasp it and get it to where the numbers are real. And what I want you to do then is use the calculator or the Excel sheet that I have down below, and it will help you kind of figure out where you need to be into the future by plugging in some of those numbers. But a financial professional will be able to give you exact numbers with reality of what's going on and not just assumptions. So then that way you can have a much better target to aim for. But if you're trying to get a little bit of a ballpark for yourself, I think that Excel sheet down below will be able to help you with that. All right, so let's talk about the goal setting process. Now, we're going to get more into this and into the following pieces, the actual milestones. But what I want to help you with here is understanding we're going to be setting up multiple goals, and oftentimes we can accomplish multiple goals at the same time. So don't feel like you have to do all of these individually. Sometimes there are ways that we can shortcut some of this and knock out 3 or 4 of these with one product or one service that would really surprise you. And by doing that, it oftentimes saves us lots of money. This is why you want to work with a financial professional, because generally people that don't, I find they are piecing these things together and it's always more expensive. Think about going to an a la carte restaurant versus getting the combo meal. You usually save money when you get the combo because it covers and encompasses all of the things that you would want, or all of the things that you need. So in this goal setting process, there's a couple goals that we're going to be focused on. We're going to be focused on being able to increase our income and decrease our expenses. And that's not quite a goal, but it's a target that we're going to be working on. So you might be able to set that. There might have been some things when you were filling out this budget that you said, man, I really don't need this anymore. I just personally canceled my Netflix and my Prime, not necessarily because I needed the $40, but because I just didn't need the Prime or Netflix, right? There's so many sources. We're really focused on building the business and putting out additional content and those things like that. So I really need those kind of extra hours versus just sitting there mindlessly watching TV. So what are some of those things that you can cut out? Not just that will give you money back, but will give you time back. And then we want to figure out what will we actually need to be able to stop working one day, depending on however we want to do that. Personally, I would not include Social Security in that. Not necessarily that it won't be there, but we don't know in what capacity. And it's always nice to have extra versus planning for it to be there and not being what you expect it to be. So personally, I would plan without Social Security. So plug in those numbers, figure out with your retirement age and your life expectancy about and how much money you need a month, what that's going to look like into the future. Calculate that out. That will give you your retirement goal. Now we're going to have goals in between there, like our emergency fund. We also need to make sure that we get that funded, and that's almost just as important as getting our long-term goals, because we need to have something that's going to help us weather the storms. If we're constantly, I see people do this all the time, and I've personally done it, I pulled from my 403b, basically a 401k, but from the government. And when you do that, there's taxes and penalties and other issues that come with it, and we don't want to do that. So the emergency fund gives us the buffer that then we can go towards these programs that give us benefits in taxes and in growth. And then that way we're not penalized when we have to touch the money here. It's only the improper management of money that causes us to have these penalties, because we're not using these programs correctly, because we're not budgeting and we're not building our emergency fund. We're also gonna have other goals. You might want to get married. You might want to purchase a home. You might want to get a new car, or maybe send a kid to school. There's going to be other goals in there that are specific to you that we're also going to need to figure out. So you're going to kind of have to figure those out on your own, because a calculator can't really do that. So if you want to purchase a home, and you've got to figure out about how much that home is going to cost you, what's the down payment that you need, and when do you want to purchase that home? And if it's 2-3 years from now, well then how do I get a 10% down or whatever the loan is that you're going to be using? How do I save up that much money in the next couple of years? And so there's going to be lots of things and lots of goals that we're trying to figure out. And then what we've got to do is take some accountability and realize we've got to prioritize things. And we'll go over that a little bit more in the future, but you are going to realize that you might have to sacrifice in certain areas. Maybe you've got to wait another 2, 3, 4 years to save up enough money to buy that home that you really want so that you can hit your other obligations or other things that you want to do. Personally, I think you should also have in your budget some kind of vacation or fund is what I call it, where we like to travel or we like to go do things. Nice thing is the business pays for a lot of that now, so if you don't have a business, I highly recommend looking into it. But if you don't, there are probably things that you like to do with yourself or your family that you should create an additional goal for those. Maybe it's going on a once a year trip or something, and you know that's going to be $5,000. So now you can divide that into your budget as well. So let's say, just for easy numbers, it's $6,000, right? You know that you need to be putting $500 a month away to be able to hit that goal by the end of the year. Because our ultimate goal is that we stop using credit cards to fix all of these things, where we buy it now because we didn't plan for it, and then now we have to not only pay back that $6,000, but we've also got to pay that 18% interest rate on top of it. And that's really what's killing our budget. So my main point being here is doing your budget and setting your goals should not feel like a punishment. You shouldn't have to limit everything that you're doing and put yourself into a box and you hate it every single day. Now, in the beginning, you're not going to like a lot of it. That's different than hating, right? Like when you start working out, you're going to be a little bit sore. That's a good feeling. However, if you hurt yourself, that's not a good, right? So you've got to learn how to understand the difference between hurting yourself and being sore because you're doing things that you haven't done before. And so my point with that is that you don't want to cut everything off and then live miserably to where you get to the point where you have to splurge to have any fun, and then you end up going right back where you were. And I see that happening with a lot of times with these budgeting people on YouTube. They cut back so much and they have no fun for so long that all they can do is splurge and go wild, and then they spend all of this money and they're even worse than when they started. So part of this is going to understand, what do I actually need and what do I enjoy and what brings me happiness and fulfillment, and what are the things that I can cut out. And you making that decision is really going to help you in this process of doing your budgeting and your goal setting. So I hope this was helpful for you. Don't forget to smash the like button and also hit the subscribe as well, and the little bell, so that way you can see additional videos as they're coming out. And I hope this was helpful for you. I will see you later. Bye.